back to Fridays Are for Families. Today we have another interview as we just really seek to bring you something different. And if you have not tuned in to some of our previous interviews and theology conversations, we invite you to do that. You can check them out on our website or our YouTube channel. You can go to Pathway Student Ministries on YouTube and find it there, or family@pathway.com. And so we're going to bring you another interview today. And our hope and our desire behind these interviews is so that you know that there's not just one way to do family discipleship. It looks different in every single family, and that's okay. And some of us do it intentionally, some of us fall into it, some of us, it just looks different. And so that's our hope behind these interviews. And so we're glad that you're joining us again for this interview today. And we hope it'll be a blessing to you and an encouragement as well. So I have here with me some of my friends. And you guys know Jenna. She's over here. I don't know. Hi, Jenna.
Hello.
Yes.
Good to see you guys.
Yes. And then we have our interviewee here with us today. So Morris, would you go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody and tell us, what do you do here at Pathway?
Okay. Yeah, I'm Morris Book. My wife is Beth, and we came to Pathway Church in 1980 and have been involved with Pathway since then. I am currently serving as an elder and also working part-time on the church staff as director of care ministries.
Can you tell us a little bit about your family, your kids, your grandkids?
Yeah, I'd love to. My wife and I have 4 sons, all adults now. 3 of them are married, and they have families of their own, and we have 9 grandchildren. All of them living up in the Great Lakes states, so they're not close by, and we need to make trips up. We call it our Great Lake tour when we go see the grandchildren.
Well, tell us a little bit about you and Beth and your home growing up. What did it look like raising kids? What did it look like to try to raise them to know Jesus? Give us a little background on that.
Yeah. When our boys were very small, I was a surgical resident, and my schedule was such that I was actually not home very often during daylight hours. And so Beth, my wife, had the primary responsibility of caring for and discipling our little boys at that time. When they became older and my schedule was different, of course we shared that responsibility. I can't say that we were always successful in having organized, disciplined, sit-down devotional times. But Beth and I tried very hard and worked very hard at creating a culture within our home of Christ-centeredness. Whether we were teaching or leading or discipling, whatever we did, we tried to do it in a Christ-like manner and demonstrate that to our sons. We were very committed to the church, and church activities were a big part of our family life. There was never a question on Sunday morning whether we would be in church. We were just there. We were also involved with youth activities and church activities for the children as our sons were growing up. My wife and I both helped lead in some of the church children's ministries, Christian Service Brigade, Pioneer Girls at that time, that sort of thing. So our emphasis was really to live out a lifestyle and organize our activities around things that were Christ-focused.
Yeah.
That's good. I can imagine with 4 boys, there was probably some interesting moments that you probably had in discipling them. So I'm just curious, like, were there any memorable moments? They could be like silly or funny memories, or maybe some breakthrough moments. But I imagine that just the energy and the chaos that can come with 4 boys. Yeah, is there anything that sticks out in your mind of like, oh, this was just like silly or crazy, or this was like particularly like, wow, they got it here? Like any memorable moments from discipling?
What I'm thinking of in response to your question right now is our 6 weeks that we spent in Zambia as a family. Wow. When our boys were junior high school age. And that was a sort of a landmark experience within our family. Ryan, our oldest at that time, he was 16, interestingly did not want to go. There were no motorcycles, no girls, no movies, no swimming pools. And it seemed to him like it was going to be a wasted summer. But we had a wonderful experience serving in Zambia in a mission hospital, and in that mission community. Our guys were involved in that as well. And following that, coming home, and in retrospect, every one of our boys loved that experience. And it gave them a vision for the world being much bigger, Christ's church being much bigger than what it was at home or in our church or in this American community where we live, and really fostered a sensitivity to the poor, regarding the poor and the disenfranchised, which of course reflects God's own concern.
Mm-hmm. That's really cool. I can imagine that would be just an amazing experience.
Yeah, it really was. As a matter of fact, 3 of our 4 sons have each gone back to Africa for a rather extended period of time, just because of that experience.
Yeah, wow.
Maurice, you talked about some resistance from your son Ryan just to this experience, but I'm guessing you met resistance from your kids at other times with discipleship. And I think sometimes I think parents think, well, my kids are going to love this and they're going to be so excited to sit down and hear God's word. And then when they meet resistance from their kids, they get really frustrated by that. Did you ever experience that as a parent?
Yes, absolutely.
Your kids didn't run and flock to your chair
please
when you opened the Bible?
Yes.
No, we tried hard to make that meaningful and appropriate for them at whatever stage they were in. When they were younger, it was much easier. The stories we told, the songs that my wife would sing, it was easy to engage them and make them part of this experience. As they got older and there were competing activities and pressures at school, that became much more difficult and sometimes was frustrating for their dad. But we made it through.
And so you mentioned for a while, Beth was kind of the primary, and then as time went on, you guys shared that responsibility. What were some of the uniquenesses between you and Beth of did you do all of it together in those moments, or was it you kind of handled the Bible reading and she handled the, whatever, what unique roles did you guys have just in discipling your kids?
Yeah. Beth was, as our guys got a little bit older, she was the mother in the home and very busy, and the caregiver and provider. I was the one that in the evenings when I was home would spend time with the guys, reading to them, discussing issues, and that's usually the way it went.
looking back on your time discipling your kids, and I'm sure there's still discipling going on even with adult kids. What benefits do you see of the things that you did when your kids were young?
I think that the primary benefits that Beth and I see today are looking back at the choices that our sons have made. They say that we make the choices, but the choices we make ultimately make us. And they've made generally good choices in seeking Christian education at the college level when they got to that age, choosing Christian wives, and making sure that their children have come to know Jesus.
And then what about the opposite? What do you look back on with regret and think like, oh man, I wish we would have done this differently, or I wish we would have capitalized on this more?
That's an easy question. My biggest regret is that I did not have more time to spend one-on-one with each of my sons. And it was just a result of my schedule. And I would have to admit, too, that I didn't always make the right choices time-wise. But looking back, that's my biggest regret, yes.
So individual time,
Yes,
disciple
right,
each of them.
right, one-on-one, yeah.
Which is hard to do as a busy parent, right?
Now, you have the benefit at this point of looking back, and now your sons are discipling their kids, and that's a unique perspective. What does discipleship right now look like in the lives of your sons? Like, obviously you have a very different relationship with them now, still their parent, obviously, but what does discipleship look like in those moments now with adult children?
Yeah, discipleship on our part, or what they're doing. Yeah. Well, we definitely try to be as involved in the lives of our grandchildren as we can. That's been a little bit more difficult just because of the distance involved. Made frequent trips and went to church with them, engaged with them in their activities, and again tried to influence through our attitudes and lifestyle and communication a Christ-like example. We just recently had the privilege of having our oldest grandson live with us for about a year and a half. And that was exciting for us, and a unique privilege. And it was good to sit at the supper table and just talk about what he was doing and what his goals were, and the importance of time with the Lord and prayer and church involvement. And it was really good to see the growth that he experienced when we were with us. That was a unique privilege that we never thought that we would have, to have one of our grandchildren with us for an extended period of time as a young adult.
Yeah, that is really cool. It's a special moment. Yeah. There seems to be a theme, like as you're talking about, like things that you wish you had done, things that you did, and even now, of just like this presence of like being there, being present, being focused. And I think that's a really good help for us to just like as younger parents to remember, like, yeah, that's so important to be present with your kids. You know, there's so many things distracting us, so many opportunities to draw our attention away, whether it's, cell phones or TV or sports or things like that. Like, so many things can distract us from just being in those moments, right? Even sitting down at the dinner table and having those conversations instead of like at the dinner table with your phone out and some of that, I think that's a good word for us. That's just helpful. So thank you for sharing all that, and it's cool to see that just woven over the years. But also, I would ask, just specifically, do you have any encouragement that you would want to give to, like, not just us here, but like to all parents? Yeah.
Yeah, I think my words of encouragement would be to just love your kids, prioritize your time, be with them as much as you can, and in the process, just try as much as possible to demonstrate a Christ-like attitude in everything that you do.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, Morris. I appreciate you being here and just talking with us and sharing your heart. One of the things that I really appreciated most is you didn't share a lot of like, hey, you need to follow this method of doing things, or it needs to look exactly like this. I agree with Ben that like the thing I heard most was just the need to be with your kids and just love them well, and demonstrating, that Christ-like attitude and modeling what it looks like to be a follower of Jesus, and inviting our kids to follow us as we do that. And that doesn't necessarily take extra time. It just takes intentionality of making sure that we're doing those things. So I appreciate those words that you spoke to us. And hey, Pathway families, we so loved gathering with you, and I hope that you have enjoyed this conversation as well. As you've listened, our hope and our desire would be that you wouldn't just consume this and listen to it and then like turn it off, but that you would talk this over with other people, invite other people into the conversation, share with somebody what you heard, but also to consider, what ways can you be more present with your kids? What is your family's rhythm and patterns, and are there areas in which you need to just slow down a little bit, or are there times where cell phones need to be put away for a little bit during the day so that you can be intentional about being there with your kids? I love that Morris didn't speak about just like all these extra things that he did, but just really about a attitude of presence. And so we would encourage you towards that as well. We'd also love for you to check out what we have, and you can do so by going to family@pathway.com. And we can't wait to see you for our next Fridays Are for Families. Have a great week, everyone.